Has God disappointed you? Was there something that you hoped and prayed for that didn't happen? Or maybe something painful that did happen? It's possible to be angry and disappointed at God. But in this video, I want to share with you how to resolve and process those feelings so that you can have peace in your heart and so that your relationship with God can be restored to you. So stick around.
Maureen and Ray Borzone specialize in freedom and wholeness coaching. Now they are sharing the most requested lessons from their powerful live classes with you. Join them as they lead you to inner freedom and relationship wholeness through the love and power of God.
What are some symptoms of having resentment and bitterness toward God? One is that you may find yourself feeling disinterested in God or distant from Him. And that's not unusual. That's what happens in any relationship, even in interpersonal relationships, where someone has offended us. We feel less interest in spending time with the person. Bitterness and resentment causes separation in our relationships, and the same could be true for you in your relationship with God. Another symptom is not trusting God like you used to. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, and that's not unusual also in any relationship where trust may be severed and it needs to be rebuilt. Another symptom is having resentment or jealousy toward other people who have not suffered the way you have, who maybe did get the answer to their hopes and prayers. In our other videos, we share with you the concept of forgiving people and releasing resentment and bitterness. And in those videos, we talk about the choice to forgive someone is really not based on feelings, but it's just that, it's a choice. We also share that the reason we forgive people is not because they apologize to us or explain themselves or fix something or make the situation right. We forgive because we need to be free of resentment and bitterness that resides in our own hearts. I don't want for you to be waiting for anybody to be apologizing to you before you will forgive them. I want you to experience the freedom and the wholeness that comes from releasing yourself of resentment and bitterness toward people. So we don't wait for explanations and apologies before we forgive someone. And the same principles are going to apply in your relationship with God, that there are things that you feel disappointed and upset about. The path forward is not to wait for God to explain why and to answer the question, but really that you take proactive steps to release yourself from resentment and bitterness that you have toward God. I'm not saying to you that God did something evil, that God did something wrong, because God doesn't do things evil or wrong. He doesn't need to be forgiven the way other people do who have behavior that can be really bad sometimes, say things that are careless, etc. So it's not the same exact thing in this situation. So we're not going to say we're forgiving God. We're going to use different language for that, which you'll see in a couple of minutes. Another difference is that we're not saying that God owes us something. We can't really demand that God pay us something or pay us back, or that He owes us. Before I share the prayer with you about releasing resentment and bitterness towards God, just a few points I want to bring up. One is the question of, does this mean that you will trust God again? And the answer to that is, hopefully, but it may take some time, because trust is something that takes some time to develop. The first step is always to release yourself of resentment and bitterness toward a person. Down the road, trust can be restored when that happens, but it takes some time sometimes. So it may take you a little time for your trust in God to be restored. The second point is that you may want to take some time and consider the good things and the mercy that God has shown you that you may have taken for granted. And so this is true of all of us. And it's not to minimize the pain you may have suffered or the loss you may have suffered. But sometimes it's helpful to think about a larger perspective that should be considered. There's a lady that my wife Maureen and I know that prayed that God would cause good weather for her daughter's wedding. And so in talking with her, more than once it's become clear that she has resentment toward God because it rained on her daughter's wedding. And so, it's very disappointing, and it's frustrating to be praying and hoping for good weather during a wedding and then have it rain. But the perspective that may help this woman is, I'm grateful to God that my daughter found a good husband, that he's a good person. I'm grateful that we had the means financially to pay for my daughter's wedding. I'm grateful that the wedding was a nice day, even though it rained. There are many ways to look at a larger perspective and say, maybe things didn't go exactly the way I wanted, but I can still say, God has been good to me and provided good things and blessings to me. And a more serious example is I was coaching somebody who lost their father to COVID. He was 56 years old, and this man was telling me about the pain of that loss and how he had prayed that God would heal his father, and sadly his father passed away. It's a much more serious situation for sure. And in the discussion, I was asking this person, would you be able to consider some ways in which God has shown you mercy and been good to you regarding your father? And in reflecting on it, it was, my father was a good guy, and that's why I feel the loss of my father. So I can be thankful that I had a father in the first place, and that he was a good guy. And not everybody has a father that is present. There are some fathers who don't fulfill their responsibility. This one did. This was a good guy, and I'm sad because of the loss. But God doesn't owe me a father, and I've had 50 years with this good man. And so that kind of perspective enabled this person to move forward with releasing the judgments and the resentment that they had towards God. Hopefully that's helpful for you as well. So a couple of questions I'd like to ask you before we proceed with the prayer. The first question is, are you willing to release your resentment and bitterness towards God, even though you don't have His explanation for why things happened the way they did? If you're willing to release resentment toward God without His explanation, then you'll be ready to move forward to question 2. And question 2 is, are you willing to release and to drop your judgments against God? And by that I mean judgments like God doesn't care, God is not loving, God is not good. Those are judgments we form, and we form judgments like this against people when we have bitterness towards them. So are you willing to release and to drop your judgments against God and say, I was wrong to form these judgments against God? And if that's a yes, then I want to share with you this prayer. I'm going to put it on the screen for you. I recommend that you let me read it to you so that you can see that you're truly in agreement with this prayer before you pray it. You can, of course, pause the video if you'd like to. Lord God, I accept that you are good and that you have shown me mercy and kindness in many ways that I have failed to fully appreciate. Even though I don't know why things have occurred in my life the way they did, I am choosing to stop accusing you of doing something wrong. My enemy, the devil, has been at work accusing you in my ears, but I no longer receive these accusations against you. I permanently renounce and reject all my judgments, blame, and accusations against you for what you have or haven't done, including, and this is where you can be specific, which I encourage you to do. I permanently release all the bitterness and resentment I have had towards you. I open my heart to you and I ask you to give me understanding. Please help me to know you better and trust you more. Hopefully you've read this and agreed that it's something that you do want to pray and you do want this to be the state of your heart. I just encourage you, if necessary, repeat this prayer over a few days or several days, and that process will refine this change of heart for you. If you want your heart to be free of resentment and bitterness towards God, we can count on God helping you, that God will actually help you to do this. So I want to encourage you with that. Please like and subscribe and share this video with anyone that may benefit from it. I'm Ray Borzone. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.